welcome to lesson 4.1 Everyday Math. So today we're going to be working with place value. When you work on place value, if I have the number 526,982, huge number, right? Notice that we say this like this is my 100,000s place, this is my thousands place. We know this, right? When you look at a whole number like this, technically, now you can start thinking about it as having a decimal right after it. That means that technically, this is my ones column, there are 0 past the decimals. Okay, it doesn't change the value. But you need to know where that decimal is and what it does. So I think of my decimal and my ones column as almost like the pivot point. That's like the center. Because this is my ones. Right here we have tens, but on this side, it would be tenths. This is my hundreds. This one would be my hundredths. What do you think my 3 would be? If I had to label that place value using this pattern, what do you think the 3 would be? Technically, this is my thousandths. Notice that this would be thousand. This would be thousandths with the THS. Now, the reason why this is the same as 2 times 1, 8 times 10, 9 times 100, right? On the right-hand side, it would be times 1/10. 1/100th, and 1/1000th. That's kind of a way to think about it. So we're going to work with place value for a little bit today, and we're going to talk about a few things. So this is what we're going to use. When I think of place value, I'm going to think of my block. So I'm going to think of this is now my ones. The reason why is because this is whole. It's put together. It's one whole. I'm going to think of these as my tenths because there are 10 of these that fit in here. This will be my hundredths because 100 of these fit in my whole. And my thousands are little tiny itty bitty pieces. So I'm going to kind of show you how I do this. All right. So when I think about decimals and writing them and reading them, one of the things that I do is I actually kind of draw a picture above my number. All right. So we're going to start by looking at a few decimals today. We're going to rewrite them and we're going to do a couple of things with them. So if I take my number 0.345. 0.345. One of the tricks that I use, because it helps me out, is I actually draw my picture. My ones would be like that. My tenths, my hundredths, and my thousandths. That's how I draw my picture. Now, to read this number, one of the things with math is whenever you see this decimal, that's when you say the word and. So some of us, when we used to say a number, if I would ask you a question, if this was your answer, you would say 521. That is not how you read that number. You would say 521. If you had said that and, like you did, 521, that is how it would be written. In math, whenever you see the word and, that means decimal. That means put your decimal because everything less is smaller. So the way that we're going to write this on our chart, we're going to start by writing it 0 ones, 3 tenths, 4 hundredths, 5 thousandths. Now the way that we read this is we say 0 and 345 thousandths. So the trick with this is, that was my little hint, the trick with reading numbers is you read anything before the decimal as a whole number. So what number do we have? 10. Then you say and. Then any digits past the decimal, 29. And then whatever your last digit is, you say that place value. So this would be 10 and 20 9 tenths hundredths. That's how you would write it. So if I were doing word form, that is what you would write. That is also how you read a number. All right, let's try another one. Let's try another one. Here we go. I want you to put this one on there. 5.16. 5.16. How would I put that in my chart? Well, the way you would do this is you would put this in your ones column. So 5 goes in my ones column. And remember, I like to draw the picture above it. So this is my ones. This is my tenths. This is my hundredths. And I have no thousandths. So 5.16. And I'm going to put a 0 here because there are none. That's how I would write it in the chart. How would you say this number? Your options are going to be in word form, but I want to know, how would you read this number? You should have said 5 and 16 hundredths. That is a little hint that you can use to help you out. 5 and 16 hundredths. Let's try one more. Let's try, what would you do with 6.408? How would I put that in my chart? You should have 6.408. Now again, think of my hint. Say what's before the decimal and after your decimal place value. How would I read this number? You should have said 6 and 408 thousandths. That's how you would have read it. All right, fine. You think you're so smart. You're so awesome. I'm going to give you another one. How would I write 4 and 8 tenths? 4 and 8 tenths, write it. Now, if you had said 4 and 8 tenths, you're correct. 4.8, absolutely. Fine. Let's try a trickier one. Let's do 7 and 90 thousandths. 7 and 90 thousandths. All right, this one is tricky. So the way that we're going to do a question like this, that's where you have to think of my little skill, that my strategy I taught you. 7, my 7 is a whole, so that goes here. My next part, it says 90 thousandths. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find that thousandths place right here. My last digit of 90 needs to be there. So if I write the number 90, it's 90. All right, and I can't have an empty space, so what I would put here? You're going to put that 0. If that's what you had, awesome. So writing place value and reading place value can be tricky. This is why, and especially when we're in class, I like to do a lot of practice with this. So during our Zoom, be prepared. I'm going to show numbers, and I want you to be able to say them and read them out loud to me. I'm also going to have you write them to me today, so make sure that you are ready to do that. We're going to be filling up the rest of this page during your Zoom lesson, so make sure that you're prepared for that. All right? Now, let's go to page 113 in your math workbook. Page 113. It says to write the following decimals in Word using the place value chart to help us out. So I'm going to, again, go through my hints. So I'm going to move this a little closer maybe. All right, my number, 0.67. Hang on, let me focus it again. There we go. 0.67. So I'm going to use my trick. What's before the decimal? 0. What do I write for my decimal? And what do I have after the decimal? 67. And what place value is that 7 in? All right. Here's my decimal. Tenths, hundredths. That's how you're going to write that place value. So I zoomed in just a little bit. I'm going to zoom back out so you can see it all. All right, here we go. Let's do this next one, 3.8. 3.8. All right. What's before my decimal? What do I write for my decimal? What's after my decimal? And what place value is it in? All right, I want you to try the next one on your own. Try it, see what you get. All right, you should have written 3 and I'm looking at that whole number. It's 622. 622. And my place value for that last 2 is the, let's see, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So 622, I'm going to write it as good as I can, thousandths. All right. Whew. A lot of writing. A lot of writing. All right. Here we go. Last question. Using what I used in the last 3, try this one again on your own. All right. Here you go. 0 and 804. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. All right, that's how you would do that one. Now we're going to go ahead and do the next few. Here we go. Number 5 through 8. So we're going to write each decimal using numerals recorded on the place value chart on page 112. Then write the value of the 4 in each decimal. So 4 and 8 tenths. We already put that one over there. 4 and my tenths place is here, so that's where my 8 goes. How much is that 4 worth? It's worth $4. 4.00, 4 holes. All right, 48 hundredths. There's no and it's hundredths. That means it's smaller than 0. So 0, 48 hundredths. All right, tenths, hundredths. That means my 8 would go here and my 4 would go here. What is that 4 worth? 0.4. All right, fine. You try number 7A on your own. 48 thousandths. All right, here you go. You should have had 0 here. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. That's my thousandths, so that's where my 8 goes. My 4 goes there, and I have an empty space, so I have to do a 0. All right, my 4 is worth 0.04. That is what it's worth, 4 hundredths. Ooh, 6 and 48. 6 and 408 thousandths. Try it. All right, 6 and tenths, hundredths, thousandths. All right, 408. So my 8 would go here. There we go. There we go. And then finally, it says rewrite each decimal as a fraction. The way that you do this, basically, you think about where they are in the number line. Oh, sorry, I skipped this one. 0.4. All right, think about what place value this is in. 6 what? Tenths. So it would be 6 over 10. Where's my 3? 3 over 100. What would you do for that 8? What would you do for that 8? Are you ready? You would write 8 over tenths, hundredths, thousandths. That's how you do it, guys. All right, 2 tenths, 0.2. 65 thousandths. All right, this is where I'm going to write my place value. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. My thousandths goes here. So that's where my 5 goes. My 6 goes here, and I have an empty spot, so I put a 0. That one is tricky. More times than not, 13 is going to trick many of you. Don't be tricked by it. All right, and 402 thousandths. Try that one on your own. All right, so you would write 0.402. All right. Now, we're going to write some mystery words. So use the clues to write in the mystery numbers. So my 5 is in the tenths place. 6 is in the ones place. 2 is in the thousandths place. And 1 is the hundredths place. Great. That one should be easy. This one is the one that can be tricky. Remember, if it's 1/10 as much, it's going to move this way. It's going to get smaller. If it's 10 times as much, it's going to move this way because it gets bigger. Make the 7 worth 1/10 as much. So it was here, so now it needs to go here. Make the 8 worth 10 times as much, so it was here, and now it needs to go here. The 4 is 1/10 as much. It needs to go this way. And the 9 is 10 times as much. It needs to go here. This is tricky. We will work on this a lot more this quarter. This should be pretty similar from what we did earlier in the year, so it's just a little bit review because it does go with decimals. But it's the same concept. So we're going to work on this a little bit more. Your jobs today are going to be doing a few more things with expressing decimals and writing decimals. It looks like we are going to have a little bit of math boxes a little bit earlier in the chapter. So I believe that you're going to have math boxes for 1 are going to be on page 111. So page 111, go ahead and make sure you have those done if you can before our meeting, and I will see you there. Have a great day, guys.